Inspire Podcast, where mental health meets real life. I'm your host, Samantha Ariza, therapist, educator, semi-normal human being. Depends on who you ask. But I want to be your go-to for real, relatable conversations about healing, growth, and this whole emotional mental health wellness thing that we talk about. Around here, we believe that mental health does not have to be stiff or scary. We keep it human, practical, and we have a little bit of fun along the way because you know what? Life is messy and we're just trying to all figure it out. But this is not a replacement for therapy or meant to be therapy. This is just a way to get help for ourselves and get some support because we all need it. Each week, you'll get honest insights, science-backed tools, and stories that remind you that you're not alone in this. Whether you're on your own healing journey or supporting someone else in theirs, there's something here for you, my friends. So take a deep breath in and let it out. Grab a cup of coffee or some green tea and get a little cozy because we're about to dive in. And today we're going to have conversations with an actual person on their own mental health journey. And Colin is someone that I work with this company called Minding Your Mind. Minding Your Mind is a preventative kind of intervention kind of group that is trying to end the stigma around mental health. And Colin and I work on presentations that talk about mental health. Colin's a little bit different versus me. I talk about kind of the clinical aspect of mental health, while Colin talks about his own story and journey with mental health. So we're going to dive into it. I do want to give you a heads up. Colin's story does talk about substance use and does touch on the subject of suicide. So if these are topics that are triggering for you, I'm just giving you a heads up. You can either turn this off and move on to a different episode, or just be ready to kind of turn it off and take some space to take care of yourself. But let's dive into it and talk to Colin about his own mental health journey and what that can mean for all of us. So thank you so much, Colin, for coming on my podcast to speak to me about your mental health journey. I know I have had the pleasure of hearing your story, but if I was to ask you to describe your mental health journey in your own words, what would you describe it as?
Yeah, absolutely. I got three little words or sayings that I go to whenever anyone asks me about my mental health journey. The first is unique. I think mental health is different for each person. It varies based on your situations, how old you are, what you got going on in your life, all that different type of stuff. The second one is up and down. For me, I know there's been good times, there's been bad times, there's been happy times, there's been sad times, there's been joyful times, and there's been angry times. So up and down. And I think the third one, and this goes for any journey in life, it's never ending. My mental health is something that I plan on taking care of every single day for the rest of my life. So that journey to me, it's never ending. It's always evolving.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. I know that that's something that I think people definitely need to hear when we talk about mental health is that it's something that we need to take care of like all the time. It's not just something we pay attention to one day a week or like a few hours a day. It's something that we're constantly having to check in with. What do you feel is important for people to know about you before we talk about mental health?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is that I'm 22 years old. I'm still far from perfect. And I think I'll always be imperfect. I like to consider myself a kid because I'm still in college, but I'm really not. But I still make mistakes just like everybody else. So, like I said, I'm still young. There's still a lot out in the world that I don't know and I have no clue about. So I'm definitely imperfect. So I always say when I give presentations that just because I'm the person sharing my story or I'm the person speaking doesn't make me some sort of superhuman. Like I still make mistakes, I still mess up, and I think that's kind of the beauty about mental health to me, at least.
Yeah, I've heard your story quite a few times at this point, and I think sometimes I do forget that you're only like 22 years old because when you share your story, you share it with such wisdom that it feels like you're way older beyond your years sometimes. So I think that is something to say, but I think you have knowledge beyond your years, my friend, some days.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's also the facial hair makes me look a little bit older, so that helps too.
That's awesome. So When did you first realize your inner experience was not matching how you looked on the outside?
Yeah, for me, COVID. When the coronavirus hit, I was a sophomore in high school. I was 16 years old. I was like in the midst of my life. I was going to school, I was playing sports, I was hanging out with friends, I was always running around. And then just like that, boom, nothing to do, stuck in my house, stuck in my room. All I had to do was really think and talk to myself. And I think for me at that point, that is when I realized that my inner experience wasn't really matching how I looked on the outside. Definitely COVID, March 2020. I can say that is definite point.
Yeah, yeah. I think COVID was a big thing for all of us. But personally, what were kind of the big things that you might have needed some more attention or care that popped up for you?
Yeah, I think that being a high school student, like I said, that always had a lot of extracurriculars, always had a lot of friends. I never really had time or gave time to myself to really look into and think about my mental health. And I think for me, COVID, like I said, it kind of almost forced me in a way to really think about my mental health. And then add into the fact that to me, I think all people need human interaction. And then add in the fact that at that point, there really was no human interaction. Even with my family, I knew some of my family members that I lived with or had lived with at the time had COVID and I couldn't even see them face to face.
Wow.
So not having that face to face human interaction, taking that away, combined with the fact that I didn't have much to do, I think that is kind of when I realized that there might be something a little bit deeper here that I kind of need to look into.
Mhm. Mhm. So how did you kind of start addressing these things that started popping up for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I always like to be honest and transparent. The way I address them in the beginning, they weren't really strong ways. They're mostly negative coping mechanisms. A lot of partying, a lot of lying to my friends, lying to my family, and I think most importantly, lying to myself and being
Mhm.
untruthful with myself was almost an escape for me. It was like a way out. It was a way to avoid everything. So I think at first in the beginning, um, some of my ways with dealing with my stress, my depression, my anxiety, they weren't strong ones. They weren't ones that helped me in the long run.
Mhm. Okay. Was there a moment where you thought, "I can't keep doing this way. I have to try something different?"
For me, yeah, absolutely. Growing up, I was always an athlete. Always played a lot of sports. Growing up, football, basketball, baseball, track, soccer. There was always an event to go to, always a practice, a game, or a workout. And then once I got into high school, I played football, basketball, and I ran track. And I was very fortunate and lucky enough to have some success early on in high school as an athlete. And I played varsity football a little bit my freshman year of high school.
Mhm.
I played full time as a sophomore in high school. And then COVID hit, like I said, in March 2020. And then in New Jersey, practices in the summer were a little weird during COVID. And I wasn't really showing up to workouts. I wasn't really showing up to practice. Wasn't communicating with any of my coaches, any of my teammates. And I was in my car in July of 2020, a few months into COVID. And my coach, my high school football coach that I had a really strong connection with, his name was Coach Nymphius. He emailed me and he said to me, "Hey, Colin, what are your chances of you playing football this fall?" And that for me, I remember sitting in my car reading that email and it kind of just it hit me right in that moment. Like to think that my mental health had gotten to a point where sports were being taken away from me or I wasn't showing up to sports or I wasn't having a good time playing sports. That is when I kind of thought that, I can't keep doing this, the same way over and over again.
Mhm. I know sports had been such a big coping mechanism for you for a very long time. So to lose that was to lose something big for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, that was like my safe space in a lot. And then it's kind of interesting, when you have your safe space, when that safe space kind of gets rumbled a little bit or it gets a little bit uncomfortable, for me at least, that's when I knew I kind of needed to lock in, so to say, or kind of bear down or buckle down on my mental health.
Hmm. So, what were some misconceptions you had about your mental health journey, before? Because mental health has this huge stigma.
Right.
So, what were some things that kind of were going on in your head before you started this whole thing?
Yeah. I think the first one, the misconception that I had, the strongest one, the biggest one was that you're stronger if you don't talk about it and you push through it on your own, as if
Mm.
like you fight the battle alone, and that makes you stronger. And what I can say, about almost 6 years later, is that it's actually the complete opposite. It's the people who talk about their mental health and the people who speak up. And it doesn't have to be to a large audience. It could be speaking up to one person. It could be speaking up to a friend, family member, a coworker, whoever it is. The people that speak up, they are actually the ones that are in strength, because it takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of bravery that sometimes we don't even know that we have within us to speak up about our mental health. So I think that for me was the one of the biggest misconceptions that I had. And the second one, like I've kind of been harping on for the first few minutes, I was always an athlete. And to me, there was a misconception that if you were an athlete, you weren't allowed to talk about your mental health.
Mm.
And that side of adversity, it wasn't allowed to exist in an athlete's mind. And I think for me, those are the two most common or strongest misconceptions that I had personally before my own journey.
Okay. What do you think plays a major part in that, we can't talk about it in sports?
Yeah. I think for me, for one, I was a male. And I think talking about our mental health as males, it can be a little bit scary, or it can be a little bit frowned upon, because as males, we're always raised, the old school mindset, always raised, always taught that no matter what it is, at the end of the day, you're the one that has to be strong. And I think for me, as a male athlete, especially one that was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be successful on the field, I wasn't allowed to go through that type of adversity. The
Mm.
only adversity that I was allowed to go through was on the field and or on the court. And once I brought if I brought my mental health into the onto the field or onto the court, that was a bad thing, so to say.
Mm.
And I think that was a misconception that I had, um, during my high school years. And even when I was a little bit younger, I think some of the roots of my mental health journey started when I was a little bit younger.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit more about that, where it started maybe in your youth?
Yeah. I think in middle school and even in elementary school, I always put a lot of pressure on myself. Um, I always felt like I had to be perfect. I was the third child. I have two older siblings, and they did a great job for themselves of being successful, excuse me, in many different things. And then it
Mhm.
put a little bit more pressure on me to be successful because they did such a great job. They set the bar high, um, which was a good thing and a bad thing. Um, but I think that I put a lot of pressure on myself from a young age, elementary school and middle school, to be perfect. And the funny thing is, at the same time, my body and my mind was also developing into becoming an adult. So
Mm.
combine those two factors, and I think that's kind of the root issues of some of my mental health journey that I went through.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, how did these mental health challenges, intersect with all the different parts of your life? I know you've talked a lot about sports. Were there other roles, expectations, or even values that this kind of interacted with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, socially, my mental health challenges intersected with my identity. I was always someone who I always went out every weekend. Always went out with my friends. I always had a girlfriend. I always had a big group of guys that I was hanging out with. Like, I always like to say it kind of looked like I lived like the perfect life. And I feel like I always like to say that I lived the perfect life in like a not so good, like corny 80s movie, where like
Okay.
I played football, I played basketball, I played a third sport. I was always pretty successful in school. I always had a lot of friends, always had a girlfriend. I was always talking to everybody. I was always cracking jokes. And it kind of, my mental health challenges, it didn't really line up with that role. It's not someone, when I say that, when I describe that person, it's not someone that you would think would have struggles with their mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, from a social aspect, my mental health challenges kind of butted heads with my identity a little bit. And I think that made me a little bit more hesitant to speak up for some help about my mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could see that definitely. I think it's very hard for teenagers to feel like they can talk about these things because it's all about perception, right? Yeah, and I know one of the big things with your story is you know, at you talk about that day on the cliff. I forget what the name of the cliff
Right.
is, and where
Yep.
you
Yep.
kind of reached out to your friend or your friend reached out to you, and that was kind of a pivotal moment. Could you talk to us a little bit about that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. It was November of 2021. I was a senior in high school. I was going to college in less than a year out. I was going to play college football, like kind of like this person I described. I was going to play college football. I had that big group of friends. I had my girlfriend, and it was about 2 weeks after we lost our state semifinal game. It was a big game. We were the 2 seed. We were playing 3 seed. We were the ones that we were supposed to win. We were the higher seed. We were the favorite. We were the home team, and we ended up losing 49-0. And then at that point, for the next 2.5 to 3 weeks, I was partying just about every day, drinking just about every day, and kind of life started to snowball on me a little bit. And it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, just 24 hours for I about to see my family, people that love, people that care about me, people that I love and care about. And woke up that day and something just felt a little different. I didn't want to drink. I didn't really want to crack jokes with my friends. Always like hanging out with my brother, especially around the holidays. I didn't really want to hang out with my brother. Didn't want to hang out with my dad, watch some sports. I kind of wanted all the pain to go away. And I remember I got in my car, drove about 20 to 25 minutes to this place called the Alpine Lookout, which is part of the Palisades Cliffs where I'm from in northern New Jersey. And I had a plan that day to end my life.
Mm,
And it was a moment that I never thought in life, even during my darkest times in the months, the years leading up before that. It was a moment in my life that I never thought I would get to. I always thought that I'd be able to, stop myself, so to say, before I got to that point. But the truth was, I really wasn't able to stop myself before I got to that point. I had a friend who actually, in that moment, just as I was about to end my life, that had called me on the phone, and he didn't know where I was or what I was doing that day. He was just a friend, just calling to check in to say what's up. And it was in that moment that I kind of had a choice. And once I realized that this was kind of life calling, as I like to say, inviting me back,
mm,
saying that, my story or my journey just isn't over yet. Once I realized it was that moment, I'd answer that phone call. My friend, he drove to me. I always make a joke. He lives right down the street from me. I always make a joke that he got there in about 20 to 25 minutes. He got there in about 11 minutes. And in New Jersey, that's hard to do. So
that's
I
like
always say,
impossible.
impossible. Because I always say, I don't know what laws you broke. I don't want to know what laws you broke. And I'll probably never ask him. But I always say, I'm
Hmm.
glad he did. And he
Mm,
saved my life that day. And that for me was kind of the turning point in my life. I don't like to say climax because it wasn't a high point, it wasn't a positive point, it wasn't a happy point in my life, but it was definitely, I like to say, the pinnacle or the time where I knew I kind of needed to make a change or make a switch here in my life.
mhm, mhm. I know that moment is such a, like you said, pivotal part of your story. How does it feel talking to people about something so, like, it's a hard thing to talk about. You're literally talking about ending your life and about suicide. So, how did you come about speaking about this in your journey and talking to people about suicide so easily?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's one story that I always like to share whenever people ask me how I kind of got into it. And
Mhm.
then there's some good lessons into it. My senior year of high school, I'm like the worst math person like ever. I don't know why. For some
Same,
reason, like I
same.
just like don't. I don't do numbers. Like I'll take out the calculator or I'll Google it or ask someone that's good. Like I can't stand math. I just can't do it. And I was taking a statistics class my senior year of high school, and I was struggling. I was not doing well, to say the least. And there
Mm-hmm.
was this administrator at my high school who was offering extra help to seniors during study
Mm.
hall. So like our off period that we had at my high school. And I went to her for some tutoring, and she'd help me study with my quizzes and my tests and all that stuff. I started talking to her about my mental health,
Mm.
and I guess the way I said it sounded like a story. I didn't really mean it to be, but it just came out chronologically. And she approached me one day and she said, how would you like to share your story of your mental health journey with the administrators, like the adults that work in our school district?
Oh.
And I was like, heck no. I was like, why would in the world would I'm still a senior? I'm still in high school at this time. So I'm still like in
Yeah.
the building around town. I was like, why would I ever do that? Like, I'm not doing that in a million years. And we laughed about it. And then before I left her room that day, she said to me, she said, just think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep on it. I said, all right, I'll sleep on it. I saw her the next morning, was in her office, and I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Why not? And throughout the next few weeks, her, my guidance counselor, and I kind of constructed this really threw together this presentation. And I gave a presentation. I gave a speech in front of the administrators that work in my school district. And it was not organized at all. I had no real training. I kind of just gave it a chance. I just gave it a shot. And then but then after that, I was looking back on it, and I remember that night I got home and I had a ton of emails from teachers that I had throughout middle school, throughout high school, teachers that I didn't even have class with, but just were there and worked in my school,
Mm.
emailing me, telling me how awesome I did, um, telling me how much bravery, how much courage something like that took, and then also telling me how I helped them. And that
Mm.
was the most special part, was knowing that being just an 18-year-old kid talking for probably about 30 to 40 minutes to a bunch of adults, and then them coming back to me saying that I helped them and made their life a little bit easier, made their life a little bit better. And that
Mm.
for me was kind of like the moment where I was like, wow, like this is pretty cool. And then
Yeah.
a few weeks after that, that same administrator approached me and she said, I heard about this opportunity, this organization called Minding Your Mind. I was like, Minding Your Mind. I couldn't say it for like a week or 2 weeks. It was like a tongue
People still
twister for
can't
me.
say it.
Yeah, minding your minds, minding my mind, minding your. I couldn't say it. And she was like, you can just meet with them, just talk about it and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, like I guess if you want me to, like you helped me get this far, like I kind of owe you for the tutoring. You kind of like helped me get a B on my math test. Like, yeah, I guess I'll do this for you.
Nice.
And then I did it, and it kind of just it opened this door in my life that has like completely changed my life for like it completely gave me a 180 on how I
Mm.
kind of live. I've been very fortunate, lucky enough to be speaking with Mind Your Mind for this is I'm gonna say about my third year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, yeah, my third year with Mind Your Mind, and like I said, there's some good lessons in there. I think the first one is sometimes in life you just got to give things a chance.
Yeah.
I had no public speaking background. I had no intention of being a public speaker. Um, like it wasn't the thought never crossed my mind for the first 18 years of my life. But that one day I gave it a chance, and it's turned out to be something that's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's how we met because we've spoken together quite a
Right,
few
right.
different times. I'm trying to remember. I wanted to I know I'm kind of pulling this out on you right now, but were
No
you
worries.
there were you the one who was there when me and Evan spoke? I think we did a presentation. There was somebody who was supposed to sit and watch us who was there. Was it
Yeah,
you?
that was me in like a really bright white gymnasium with the parents
Yes. Yes, with
on
the
like a Tuesday night.
huge screen.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I was at that was the
Yes.
first time I saw. Yeah, I still remember. I do remember that. It was like a Tuesday or a Thursday. And it was like 40. I can't remember the town exactly, but it wasn't too far from my house. I
Yes.
remember.
Yes, and I was like they were like, "Oh, somebody's gonna watch you," and the funniest part about it is because in our job, we never know, like, who's actually gonna be speaking or
No.
who's gonna be watching us or what's
No.
gonna happen. So, what were your first impressions? Not that you have tell me your honest truth. Don't lie to me if
Yeah.
anything. What were your first impressions? Because that was kinda like the first time you saw, like, what this is that you were doing,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I think my first impression actually was pretty funny. My first impression was like Evan was wearing a really nice suit. And I was like,
Yes.
I don't own any suits that look like that. So I'm definitely gonna have to go to the store and go shopping and buy some clothes for this job because I definitely don't have anything that looks like that. I still remember that to this day. That was like the number one first thing that I remember. And then the second thing, because I knew Mind Your Mind worked mostly in schools with
Mhm.
kids. And then this was a parent presentation. I remember it was a
Mhm.
community outreach one. And then I remember seeing how engaged the adults in the room were, the parents
Mhm.
were. And I think it was telling to me because here these parents are on like a Tuesday or a Thursday night at 7 p.m. I'm sure the majority of them just worked all day. They got their kids at home. I'm sure they probably got something going on this weekend, but they took the time out of their lives to come watch two people from Mind Your Mind give a presentation. And not only that, because I've done parent presentations before. Sometimes you get two people, sometimes you get 50 people, but 40 of them
Yes.
are on their phones.
Yes,
So
but they were packed. That day, I
they were
remember it was packed
packed.
and they were engaged. They were ready. They had
Yeah.
questions and everything.
Yep. Yeah. So that to me was like kind of like a telltale sign that like this organization or this career or this job can be one that is not only rewarding, but one that looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny because that was, I think, my second time speaking with Evan,
Mm.
and the first time we spoke was, like, such a random one, and when I spoke that one, I think I impressed him because he was like, "Wow, you were good." And I was like, "Oh, wow, I must have been really bad the first time we spoke together if this is how impressed he was."
Yeah. It's like,
Yes, it was hilarious, but, yeah, I'm gonna try to get Evan on the podcast too. I've
yeah.
been trying I
He
have to
was
reach out
he
to
was
him.
great. He
Oh,
was he
yeah,
was
no.
fantastic. He
I
was
did his
fantastic.
so that was the first one you saw with me and him. I was actually there for his last one with Minding Your Mind
Really,
too, so I thought it
really.
was quite, like, poetic
Yeah.
in
It
that
was it was a full
sense.
circle.
It was a full
Yeah.
circle moment. Let's take a break from the episode to talk more about our emotions. I'm coming out with a course called Understanding Emotions 101. And in this course, we're going to break it down in a more simplistic, more adaptable, and more applicable way for you. It's going to be a way for us to take all of this knowledge and understanding of emotions and really bring it to the day-to-day life. We're going to learn that emotions are adaptive. We're going to learn how our emotions work in our own bodies and what we can do to better understand, better cope, and kind of even reframe what's going on with us. Because our emotions are something we're going to deal with for the rest of our lives, let's be honest. So let's become friendlier with them. Get on the waiting list, get on that pre-order list. You can use the QR code that we have here, you can use the link in our bio, and you can sign up to know exactly when Understanding Emotions 101 drops. But let's get back to the episode now. So, when you were deciding on what you were going to speak about in your story, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of different aspects you could speak about, what kind of went into that process of deciding what you were going to share and what you were not going to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that I kind of said to myself when deciding, how I kind of wanted to mold my presentation was that I wanted to be as honest and as transparent as possible. I feel like I feel like that's when I'm at my best. Is
Mm.
when I'm honest and as transparent with people around me and also myself. So I think that was a big thing. And then the second thing I really wanted to harp on and get in touch with is that it's always the kids that you don't think are going through anything that are actually the ones that are struggling. And
Mm.
that isn't to decimate the people that you kind of know are going through something. Their problems and their mental health journey or whatever it is that they're going through is just as important as the other person. But I always wanted to harp on is like I always like to say, I always like to find the kid that is suffering in silence, because that was me.
Mm,
I was the one that was suffering in silence, and I was the one that everyone thought lived like the perfect life or the ideal life in high school, when really on the inside, no one knew how hard and how poorly I was struggling with myself. So I think that was kind of a theme that I wanted to share always in my presentations. And I think the last one and the third thing was that there's no problem that is too small. I always say
mm,
at the end of my presentation, when I talk about asking for help, I always say, what did we do when we were a little kid and our shoe untied? Or what did we do as a little kid when we fell off our bike and we fell off our scooter and we scraped our hands and knees? I always say that because I want the audience, I want the kids to understand that there is no problem that is too small or isn't worth talking about. If you're upset about something, if you are feeling negative or wrong about anything, no matter what it is, and you feel like you need to get it off your chest, get it off your shoulders, get it off your back, that's something that you should talk about.
mm.
And those are kind of like the transparency and honesty. I want to find a kid that's suffering in silence and that there's no problem, no problem, no issue that's too small or not worth talking about, so to say. Those are like the
Yeah.
three things that I really wanted to get across when it came to sharing my journey on
Yeah.
a public stage.
It's like a personal mission because you were that kid. And so you want to
Yep,
make sure that they know that they're not alone.
exactly. Nailed it.
Oh, awesome. So what do you feel might be like the emotional cost of this job basically? Because you are talking so much about mental health, and do you feel sometimes that there's like pressure to be like inspirational or strong or like that person because you're kind of like standing up there to be this
Yeah,
persona, and is
right.
there any how do you feel about that in general?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I think at the beginning, um, when I first started out in about 2023 is when I first did my first presentation. um Reliving like just past traumas, it was still a little bit new to me at that time. So reliving some of the days where I thought about taking my own life, or reliving some of the dark arguments that I had with mom or dad, or with my girlfriend at the time, with my friends, reliving those moments. Because when you give your presentation and talk about your mental health, you're kind of picturing in your mind everything that happens. At least that's the way I do it. It makes it a little bit easier for me to present. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of reliving everything that I went through in my life, and rethinking those moments of trauma. Was in the beginning, like I said, was a little bit of an emotional cost.
Mhm.
The first few years, I think, as time has gone on as a public speaker, it's gotten a little bit easier. I think as time went on, just as a human being, it's gotten a
Mhm.
little bit easier to talk about those things.
Yeah.
But I think that was a big one. And also, it's funny because you know most of our days, our work days, may only be 45 minutes. Like I have some days where I work and it's one presentation, I'm working for an hour,
Yeah.
but it feels like I worked a full day, because
Yeah.
just standing up there and talking about some of the hardest moments in your life, you may not feel it in the moment because there's a lot of adrenaline going on, but
Mhm.
after the fact, you mentally and emotionally, there's times where I feel a little bit exhausted.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a lot of presentations in like a 2 week span, sometimes I'm a worker. I love to work.
Same.
It's just how I am.
Same.
Like, I just, like, if I don't work, I'm bored. So I try and book myself up as much as possible. But then, like, sometimes I gotta remind myself that, sometimes you gotta take a step back and relax, and give
Mhm.
yourself that Friday off and give yourself that little 3-day weekend. So I
Yes.
think for me, reliving past traumas, and then just sometimes just talking about things, it can take a little bit of a mental and emotional toll on you. That's why you gotta take care of yourself, most importantly.
Yeah. So what does support look like for the supporter?
Yeah. To it can be a tricky thing.
Yeah.
I always it can be a tricky thing, because there's a few different ways to look at it. The first that I always like to talk about, and I'm used to talking about it because we do, like I said before, we do some parent presentations, is as a parent. And it's like, I mean, I'm not a parent, I hope to soon be down the line. Actually, not soon, but a few years
Soon.
down the line, I hope to
Yes.
be one.
Slow down.
Yeah,
Slow down.
yeah. A few years down the line, I hope to be one, but not just yet. I still got plenty of life to live before
Yes.
that. But I think as a supporter, we want to jump right in and do everything and fix the problem ourselves, especially as a parent. Because when you're a parent, it's like, oh, that's my daughter or my son. Like I should be able to fix everything that they're going through. Like that's my job. And even
Mm-hmm.
as a supporter, as a regular person, you don't have to be a parent, but like you want to jump right in and fix whatever it is that they're going through. I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned about mental health is that I like to describe it as a boxing match. You know, you have to stick
Mm.
with me here for 30 seconds a
I'll
minute.
stick with you. Let's go.
A boxing match, right? Or an MMA fight, however you want to think of it. A boxing match, you got yourself, and then you
Mm-hmm.
got your opponent. That's whatever adversity you're going through at that time. And then you have you have the large crowd around you. And that's all the outside noise. That's all the external stuff going on in your life. But then who you got? You got the people in your corner.
Yeah.
And that's your coach, that's your friends, that's your family. But in a boxing match, people in your corner, they're not in the ring with you. They're
Mm.
outside the ring. So when you get knocked down, they can say things to help you get back up. They
Mm-hmm.
can yell things at you from the outside of the ring to try and assist you. But at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, you're the boxer that's on the ground. And you're the one that has to find it within yourself to kind of stand back up and keep on fighting.
Mm.
Well, and I think it's important that the way you stand back up and keep fighting, it's not blocking out the external noise. It's
Mm.
using the external noise from the people in your corner to help you and motivate you to stand back up.
Yeah.
That's how I always like to think about the roles of supporters and what a support look like for a supporter. I think it's knowing that you're going to do everything in your everything that you can to help, to assist, to a coach, to motivate, to comfort, whatever it is that you need to do at that time. But at the end of that day, you can't get caught up in if the other person stands up or not.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're the one that has to dig deep and find that drive within themselves to stand back up and keep on fighting. That's how I kind of like to look at
Yeah.
supporter, mental health, all that type of stuff.
No, no, no. That's a really good analogy because it's kind of like there's only so much you can do from the outside of the ring. And as the
Right.
person inside the ring, you have to have like certain skills and certain filters built in to kind of filter out the noise that's not helpful and
There you go.
and kind of like zone in on your supporters' voices. So it's a skill that we all need to like,
Hmm.
work on, but it is something that is actually a very great analogy. I think I'm going to steal it myself.
Steal it. Go ahead. It doesn't have a patent on it or anything.
No, no, no,
Not
no.
copyrighted.
Not copyrighted. I'm going to copyright it. No, just joking. Um, was there things that worked for other people around you that didn't necessarily work for you? Because I know you talk about
Yeah.
like that we didn't get into it yet, but like I know there are things that you do yourself that really help you regulate when you're feeling overwhelmed and help you with your mental health. Were there things that didn't help that you thought might work for you?
Yeah. That's an interesting concept to think about because it's something that I try and explain to people a lot. A lot of people, when you talk about mental health and people that might be going through a lot of depression or anxiety or whatever it is, they tend to isolate and be by
Mhm.
themselves. And I think that's like a unique concept because a lot of people always told me that when you're going through something, to surround yourself with as many people as possible.
Okay.
And really, for me personally, sometimes I do need some alone time. And I think the key thing about alone time, I don't like to call it isolation, I like to call it alone time. The key thing about alone time is that you can take the time to yourself and be alone and kind of whatever it is. I like to listen to music when I'm by myself, or I go to the gym and I put my earbuds on full blast. So even if someone is talking to me, I probably can't hear them. But the thing about my alone time is that after I'm done with my alone time, I always return to the people, to the crowd, so to
Mm.
say. I always return to the people that I need to surround myself with. So it doesn't become a bad habit of isolation. I
Yeah.
think for me, understanding that sometimes I need to take a step back and be by myself and maybe go for a little drive or get myself a cup of coffee or whatever it is, a smoothie by myself. I think it took me a few years to understand that about myself, but that is something that I can say that I have learned about myself that growing up, that wasn't really, for me at least, my personal experience, I wasn't told that to be the norm, so to say.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, no, that's very important. It's like you need your own reflection time to kind of have that like one-on-one time with yourself
Yep,
and have that discussion. And I mean, in your
yep,
story, you talked about how you kind of hid in people for a long time. So
yep,
that's a major like growth thing for you is to take that
absolutely.
time to reflect for yourself. That's
Yeah, for sure.
awesome. Is
It
there a
is.
common myth about healing that you would love to dismantle?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot. We could do a whole another episode on
A
that, but
whole episode on it.
yeah. I think the first one is that for me, I always like to say that a session of therapy is like some sort of magic potion, or like a dust, where like you go one time and you go for 45, 50 minutes, you go to an hour, and then it's like, oof, all your problems goes away. It's not really like that. Healing is it's like I talked about journey at the beginning. It's a never ending. It's an everlasting thing,
Mhm.
and it's kind of something that it isn't linear, so to say. There's ups and there's down. There's kind of bumps in the road. So I think those two ideas surrounding healing is what I like to dismantle. Is that just one session of therapy or even honestly maybe just 2 weeks or a month. Sometimes it takes longer. Whatever it
Yeah.
is, there's no set amount of time is what I want to say of therapy that can kind of make all your problems go away. Like I said, it's an everlasting thing. I think that is like one of the biggest things that I wish I kind of knew because it was a myth that I believed growing up. So I think that's something that I wish. Here I am 6 years later, and I still it's something that I still go to just about once a week, if not every other week, to
Mhm.
kind of keep myself on the right track.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I'm on the other side of the chair, so I think like a
Yeah,
lot of times I guess like for me it's always like trying to keep them from not being discouraged that it's taking a bit. And I
yes.
can see that as a big myth that people
Hmm.
get into when we talk about therapy. Okay. So for someone who is feeling stuck or discouraged, what would you want them to hear?
I think the first, and it's kind of like a cliche, but I think it's an important one. Like you're not alone.
Mhm.
There's people in this world, and the statistics say there's probably someone in your family that has went through something similar to this. It may not be as deep or as traumatizing as something that you went through, but I can almost guarantee, not like to make guarantees, but I can always guarantee that there's someone around you in your life that probably went through something like this before. So like I said, you're not alone. I think the second thing is that I always like to say some of the best stories in life or some of the best moments in life come soon after a time of adversity.
Mm.
I think that is like, for some reason, that is a theme or a concept that, like, I think is the end all be all. Like, I'll fight the last day of my life that is the truth. I
Mhm.
always think that the best or a good story or a great story or a great moment in life usually comes after a hard time of adversity or a hard, difficult time in life. So I
Mm.
always like to say, like, today might be a bad day, but tomorrow might be the best day. So
Mm.
to kind of just give yourself, I always like to I talk about it in my presentation. It's like the power of one more. Just give yourself one more day. Like you
Yeah.
never know what tomorrow is going to bring you. And if tomorrow isn't a good day, maybe the day after that's your day. Like you never
Yeah.
know. So just give yourself one more day.
One more day. Yeah, no, that's definitely I think, like, we kind of get stuck in the fact that good things are not happening to us, and so, reminding ourselves that, the best times could still be ahead if we just give it that
Yep,
chance is good to
absolutely.
remember. What are you still learning about yourself?
A lot.
I know.
I learn something about myself every day.
Yeah, it's like, "I'm only 22, Sam, come on, like,
Yeah.
what are you asking me?"
Yeah, I think, but for me, things that I'm still learning about myself is that Um, I think I'm a little bit more interested in every single day. I think I'm a little bit more interested in my mental health than I think I am the day before that.
Okay.
And I think that, like, we've been talking about journey and how mental health is like a never ending thing. It kind of goes back to that theme, is that like every single day is like, it's like one more building block on
Mm-hmm.
top of the next. And I always like to say to myself, like, I try and stack good days, stack good weeks, stack good months, and then I'm going to stack a good year if I just combine all those things. Whenever I'm going through a tough time, always like to say that to myself. I mean, if I'm having a really, really tough time, I'll just try and have a good hour. Then if I have a good
Yeah.
hour, I'm going to try and have a good day. And just breaking things up little by little is something that I've learned about myself that kind of helps me gather a little bit of momentum, get in a little bit of a groove. That kind
Yeah.
of helps me keep moving. And I think the second thing, and I think the most important, because I've been talking about it for the last 45 minutes, but it's something that I still have to remind myself every single day, is that I don't have to be perfect. I'm an
Yes.
imperfect human being.
Yes.
And that doesn't make me a failure. It doesn't make me a mess up or anything like that. But still learning about myself, that there's a lot of things that I don't know about in life. That's something that I think I'm still learning a lot about myself, is how to be imperfect, um, and kind of not being satisfied, but also being motivated.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know you have a lot going on because you're in school and all that stuff and traveling for work and all that.
Right?
So
Yep.
there's always a lot going on.
Always.
Always. What's a practice you're currently leaning on for sanity's sake?
Yeah. I mean, this is something that I've gotten into the last about 3 years or so. I always played sports growing up. I played a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of collegiate football, which I was very fortunate, lucky enough. My time playing organized sports kind of came to an end. And I was kind of stuck because I feel like all people need some sort of physical activity. Um, I always say during my presentations, when I say, I'm not saying that you have to go to the gyms, put 315 pounds on your back and squat 500 pounds. Like that's not what
That's
I'm
not what we're
saying. But
talking
it
about. No.
Nah, even if it's just going outside, I would like say even going outside, going for a 5, 10, 15 minute walk, just some sort of physical activity to keep their legs moving, heart rate up, breathe in some fresh air. I always like to practice my physical activity at the beginning of the day. Makes me feel good about myself. I try and go to the gym just about like 6 days a week, where I go in the morning. I listen to music and I try and not go on my phone at all. So there's
Mm,
no distractions. For some people, it can be the opposite. I know some people that um, run on the treadmill or walk on the treadmill and they watch a little show on their phone. Whatever it is that gets that physical activity, kind of gets that ball rolling for it. But for
yeah.
me, going to the gym, that physical activity is a practice that I lean on. And a second one, and I've been getting into this a little bit more, is a little bit more deep breathing exercises.
Yes.
It is like
My
always,
therapist heart is so excited to hear that.
yeah, it is something that I always thought growing up, like, stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's just made up. And then you do it, and you're like, wow, that really works better than anything that I've actually ever done.
So you've heard it
So it's
here, guys. Colin is saying deep breathing works.
it works. It really does. It works when you allow it to work. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the big thing.
It
For
is.
me, it works when the TV's off, my laptop is shut, my dog is not barking at me, and my
Yes.
phone's away. That's when deep breathing works. That's when you allow yourself to buy in and kind of allow your mind and allow your body to be present in that moment with your breath. That's when it works. And what I have found is that it makes my sleep, because I do it right before bed. It makes my
Oh,
sleep like a million times better. It really is crazy. It's another cliche. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, I'm sure that works. And you do it, and it's like, wow, they were right. Actually, that does work.
oh, I think that's something I have to do because right now I'm trying to like perfect my sleep, like quality sleep,
Yeah,
because my kids
yeah.
interrupt me all the time. But I think I need to start doing that because I've heard wonders, and
It's money.
like I do deep breathing other times of the day. I think I need to do it before
Yeah, not before
sleep.
bed. It's my go-to every single night before bed.
Yeah. So one last thing, like what is on your agenda for your future right now? What's kind of the plans? What are you working on right now?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I'm finishing up. I'm gonna I do my homework for the next 3 months, I'm going to graduate from New York University in May of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. It's been a long journey. I've bounced around. I've been to a few different colleges because I was playing sports, and then I was playing football for a little bit, and I wasn't playing football for a little bit. So my journey of college has been a little bit up and down, which has been good in a lot of ways, and it's been bad in a lot of ways. I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the world, and then after that, I'm planning on going to graduate school. Um, I want to get into sports psychology as a career.
Yes.
Um, I love sports. I love psychology. Pretty simple enough. You combine the two things and you get sports psychology.
Love
I
it.
think I love competition. I'm a competitive person. If someone finishes their dinner before me, I get upset. I like to be the first, which is a good and a bad thing, but I'm a competitive person. I love to compete. I love sports. But I think that when people think of sports, you only think about what happens on the field, and you only think about what happens physically with your arms and your legs and the rest of your body. But really, the most important part of sports
Is the
is right up
mind.
here
It's such a
in your
mental
mind.
thing.
It's such a mental thing.
Yes, no, that's so cool. That's so cool. So, sports psychology is if you were to pick where you could use your skills, where would it be for sports psychology? We're forecasting
Like
in the future.
any sport.
Like any sport, any team, like what is the dream? Dream the dream
Um,
for me.
yeah, dream the dream. I think I would like to get into practicing with football. Football
Yeah.
clients. Football is such a grueling and tough sport on your
Uh-huh.
body and on your mind. And as a football player, you're taught that whatever happens off the field, you leave it out there. I disagree with that take.
Mm.
I thought for me, some of my best games and some of my best moments as an athlete is when I took what was happening off the field and I used it as fuel and I used it as motivation to help myself get a little bit better, a little bit stronger. So I think that for me, and at the end of the day, I just love the game. I love kind of how it works. I love watching it. I always have. It was kind of just how I was raised. My dad
Yeah.
had a football in my hand since I was like 3 years old, so it was kind of just it's kind of what I was born
Yeah,
into.
that's it.
So for me,
That's it. It's
that's the dream.
destiny. It's destiny for
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Okay, any particular team that you want to work with when you are this
um,
big sports psychologist?
I don't know if I have a team, but what I can say is that I would prefer to work with collegiate athletes
Okay.
because I think
That's a big time.
being someone has yes, exactly, and being someone that has played college football, I know how difficult it can be to manage being a high level athlete while also focusing on your academics and then also being a human being and having a social life. So that's just
No.
like a subject that I'm a little bit nerdy for. I'm actually
Yeah,
I'm writing my senior thesis right now about how collegiate athletes can affect one's mental health in both a positive and a negative
I
way.
love
So
that.
that's like kind of my wheelhouse.
I
Something
love
that
that.
I'm
No,
into
no,
it.
I mean, it goes with your whole, like, persona at this point of,
Yeah,
like, wanting to help and, like, using your own experiences to help people. I think that's awesome.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I'm excited for you. But thank you so much, Colin, for having this discussion with us, for talking about your story, for giving us so much to like kind of chew on because you had so many great things to say. So thank you so
Yeah, thank you. I
much.
appreciate it. I was looking forward to this for since you came up to me that one day and offered it to me, and I'm happy it went well. I had a great time. It was
Yes,
awesome.
it was awesome. Yeah, I know. I totally like bombarded Colin after one of our presentations, like, hey, would you do this for me? And he's like, yeah, let's go. And it's been great having you, my friend. So thank you
Yeah.
so
It would,
much.
yeah, thank you. It would take a lot for me to say no to something. So you had me. You had me.
Yes. But that's it for today's episode, my friend. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Colin. If you found something helpful, insightful, or even just validating, I'd love for you to leave a review, follow the show, or share this with somebody who really needs to hear it. Colin had so much inspirational things to talk about, so I know there are things that people really need to hear out there. If you're looking for more tools for your mental wellness and mental health journey, head over to arizainspire.com. We have so much over there, so many resources, like we have the feeling wheel, we have mental health reflection prompts, we have courses, I know Emotions 101 probably just dropped by the time this episode is airing. And we do have, of course, Resilience X, as well as our Worry Workshop. These are things that are there to help you on your healing journey as you heal, grow, and show up for yourself. But don't forget to head over to our socials and follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, or on Facebook at Ariza Inspire Co. This is where we keep it real. I share some tips, and I'm really honest about my day-to-day life. Probably a little too honest. But at the end of the day, my friends, I hope you take care of yourself, and I'll catch you in the next episode.